Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino back with you for Claim to Fame, Season 2, Episode 6. And we are ready to talk about another heart-pounding episode of Claim to Fame. And back with us, a woman who never lies on the podcast. It's Jenny Autumn. Jenny, how are you?
I am excellent. I'm really grateful that we don't have like the heart rate scanner and like the whatever is like detecting sweat.
Oh yeah, no, that would be worse. Like
I
the
purposely didn't wear
thermo
shirts with
camera.
sleeves.
You're right.
Yeah, I don't want to have a Gabriel moment where you can see like that I'm sweating profusely. Like no one needs to see that. So
Yeah. Okay. And what a treat we have for us here tonight, because we are blessed to have with us somebody that we've never gotten to speak about Claim to Fame with. Of course, you could hear her talking about the challenge on the challenge RHAP up and New Girl on the New Girl Old Guy podcast. Of course, it's the great Ali Lasher.
Yeah, I wish I got that memo because I wore my Jonas jacket and I am sweating buckets.
Yes.
I was gonna say,
very hot.
Did you purposely put on a Jonas jacket? Because it's
so
beautiful.
Here's the thing.
Yes,
I did, because this is why I don't do video podcasts on the reg, because I feel like I always have to have a bit. Like I can't relax. So I put on for the audio listeners, a leather jacket for the bit. I will take it off promptly. It is way too hot.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have the sweat scanner though, Ali. Like it really, I can't tell.
Yes. And
but
thank you.
Wondering about if like you have good AC or something. And I'm like, why is she wearing a jacket?
Yes. So nice to have you here. Of course, very fitting on the night that we learn about Olivia's drunk aunt to have the drunk aunt of podcasting.
Dead. So here's the thing. I want to clarify, like, I'm not the drunk aunt, the podcast is, but it's been complicated for years. So I just want to disassociate myself. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but yeah, I'm thrilled because I watched Claim to Fame in like a quick hit, like maybe midway to the end of the season or after. I can't even remember, and was like, whoa, is this good? Like, this is good. And then when I was like ready to come back for season 2, I was like, I can finally be on pace with listening to a Jenny and Rob podcast, which has been thrilling. I dropped this on the NGOG podcast that will come out after this podcast. But you guys are the perfect duo to cover the show and many shows. But like your approach, listening to you has been such a treat, because like it would be so easy to have a "what are we doing here" attitude with the show, and like Jenny's taking it so seriously and is like thinking about things I've never thought about, and Rob is like saying the most ridiculous things. Like it is the perfect blend of like serious and not too serious.
Well, we appreciate that so much.
Yeah, a real enhancement.
You don't know what we've been through, okay? You don't know the other track that we've watched. This, I mean,
I know.
This
whenever
is
there's
Oppenheimer
a plug,
for us.
I believe
it's Oppenheimer and Barbie.
What was it? There was some maybe I tweeted this, like I saw some like plug for something you guys are covering, and I was like, you think you have a good handle on like the reality TV offerings in the current landscape, and then you hear what Jenny and Rob are talking about on Hit It or Quit It.
Probably Stars on Mars.
Was it Stars on Mars? Was it
Stars on Mars is like big time. This is like, it was like people surviving for money in the woods.
Alaska.
Oh, that, yes.
By the way, Jenny, I saw that you had been on top of some big news in terms of other Rob and Jenny's cinematic podcast universe. But the cast dropped today for World's Toughest Test season 2. Special Forces: World's Toughest Test season 2. Any highlights there?
Well, I think I mentioned that Sandoval was on this cast because I think I had seen a rumor about this already when we were while we were covering Stars on Mars.
But
which is still happening.
Not the Sandoval, the one.
Yes,
the real one.
Yes, not Schwartz. The other Tom.
We talked about Tom Schwartz on Stars on Mars.
Yeah. And Nick Vile from the Bachelor franchise. Black China is on. Tara Reid or Tara? Is it Tara Reid?
I think it's Tara Reid. Yeah. Okay. We're not going to spend too much time on this.
Anyway,
Brian Austin Green, I believe, also. Bag.
From 90210.
I'm willing to pivot this entire podcast into a preview for this because I feel like Nick Viall thinks. You know, I went to college with. I have a lot of claims to fames related to discuss.
Yes? Oh wow!
I famously went to college with the less relevant Tom Hanks relative to this podcast, Chet Hayes, but also Nick Viall's agent. And I don't talk to him anymore, but I'd like to ask. I feel like Nick Viall is either thinks he's bigger accurately, or is bigger than this kind of show. Like, isn't he I don't know.
Spoiler alert, Ali, but there was a member of Bachelor Nation that did very well on the Special
season.
Forces Call in World's Toughest Test 1.
Hannah Brown.
Wow.
So it's like that's the pipeline now. It's like the Bachelor to Special Forces World's Toughest Test pipeline.
Yeah.
But apparently also like the Bravo universe as well. So like they're feeding all the top gets.
Yeah.
How many times do you have to get rejected from Dancing with the Stars to say yes to the offer to go on Special Ops?
I feel like very different shows.
Yeah,
it would be like the worst downgrade.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Hannah was on. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Let's get into everything tonight, because I thought this was a very strategic episode here tonight of Claim to Fame. And I thought that things were really like coming down to it. Chris had to scramble. We saw some new alliances form. And then Olivia, we barely knew ya, ends up going out. And Jenny, it seems like Olivia could have won the game.
They barely knew her. It's not just us. I will say, so this, in terms of a reveal, I think this was like the biggest reaction of I had no idea. I mean, this is only the second time that we've gotten a wrong guess this season, and I just feel like they didn't react quite as shocked to Jane's reveal of Dolly Parton. So they were really shocked that no one was on to this. However, Olivia was only one of 3 bottle clues that hadn't been pulled at the time of this. So I do think that definitely plays into things here, that like they didn't have this information on Olivia because they also didn't have a clue.
Go ahead, Ali.
No, just like didn't have a clue. Have a clue. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. How shook are you to have Jenny McCarthy revealed as Olivia's aunt?
I was gagged and gooped by all of the reveals. I know you guys were on that tip that it was Jenny McCarthy, but I was still like sitting in Carrot Top land because I every week I feel like it becomes more and more like justice for Tom Hanks's niece, because the amount of carrots, and like I get the funny bunny bit, like whatever, but like it was just everything to me was screaming Carrot Top. And maybe I don't know enough about Jenny McCarthy's oeuvre. I don't know how that word is pronounced. I don't know. I always take swings at that.
Oeuvre.
Yeah, I was surprised. And I have to say, and I would never be hyperbolic ever, but Olivia's fake admission to Hugo that she is related to Carrot Top was one of the best strategic plays I've ever seen on any reality show of all time.
Wow.
Like, I bought it. Like, wasn't that impressive? I was like, idiot. Like, maybe you guys were already so convinced it was Jenny McCarthy, but I thought that was an unbelievable play, and she would have gone the distance if she was able to guess correctly.
Carrot Top got so much love from the Claim to Fame cast that people were really like, Carrot Top, he's a prop comic. She has red hair. Hello.
I mean, I was doing the same thing. I was like, okay, famous gingers. Like I was trying to think. I was laser focused on the red hair for a little bit as well. However, after our conversation last week, the funny bunny of it all, I was pretty settled on it being Jenny McCarthy. And then, like Rob, what you pointed out about like has the heart for Ace, which we don't even know if that was a clue for Jenny McCarthy or not.
I think it was. It was a magnifying glass on an ace. So
yeah, with Ace of Hearts. Even though that's not who she's married to at this point, but so I think I was viewing this episode from the lens of it probably is Jenny McCarthy. However, I do think that the play from Olivia, like what Ali's saying to Hugo, like that is what you do there, because Olivia is on to Hugo here. Like, why not, try to get something like some sort of like, I'll tell you who my person is, you tell me who yours is. We have each other as like a layup if we get really screwed, but like we should really be working together to take out somebody else here. Ultimately, I mean, she was more invested in that than he was, because she could have taken him out tonight and didn't. So I guess she wasn't all that confident. I don't know. Did we see Hugo say, like, because that's the other thing, is she confirmed the carrot top, which was fake, obviously. Did he give her anything on the Jimmy Carter? I don't think we saw that, right?
Yeah.
Hugo could be on this podcast right now, look me in my eye and tell me he's like my brother, and I wouldn't know what to think. Like he could tell me anything. I almost don't even know that she would have been able to rely on his information. I feel like that was a play to get her to not be the guesser more than anything else, or that would have been the most successful use of it. And I don't remember who Hugo voted for, to be honest. When the popsicle stick faces come out, it loses me. But that's why you guys are so great, because you recap the voting. It's like, I need the podcast, even though I've watched the show. But like, yeah, I don't, that's it. I don't know why I needed to trail off there. That was the end of my sentence.
So some of the like assumptions that the players make are pretty wild, and we had the clue going back from earlier in the season of the commander-in-chief who farms nuts, but Chris was like oh, funny faces, and somehow had made the leap. Of course, the president who makes funny faces, Hugo is related to Donald Trump. And this really got a lot of traction in the House. And I feel like that if I was on TV in the House with Hugo, I think I would have probably like asked a little like you're not related to Donald Trump, right? Right? Are you like the secret Trump son that's on the show with me? Like, because besides the game, like this is going to be like pretty important information for me to know.
I mean, she did say that, but like Hugo again, like I'll say this: if someone was accusing me of that, I would deny it. Send me home. Keep your $100,000. I'll pay you $100,000, and I'll be paying it off the rest of my life to deny that today. But Hugo is crazy, and he probably likes the misdirect and knows that that was part of it. In their defense, and I agree. I mean, you guys talked about this, but like the obsession with like the dog being Bruce Almighty is like so insane. But my mom used to be an American history teacher, and for every election, she would like print out like large photos of all the candidates, and it was like very, party agnostic, like whatever.
Yeah.
And I printed out a photo of Donald Trump for her, and she was like, "Ali, be serious. Like, you can't just like troll images and like pick the worst photo." I was like, this is from his official press website of approved photos. So he is kind of known for silly faces. I buy it.
Okay. Ali, that you mentioned your mom. Does your mom watch the show?
No.
Okay. We needed the mom test of Donny Osmond, because at this point, it's become a thing. Like, if your mom watches the show and she sees Chris immediately, that's an Osmond.
Okay, I will send her a I did tell Jenny before we got on, I have lost my phone in my very small apartment. It's not like, oh, I've lost my phone in my house. I will text her afterwards when I locate the device and send her just a picture. Yeah. She's going to be with me, though. I think he's a dead ringer for Colin Jost, and she's an SNL girly. So
I think that Phil also thought he looked like Colin Jost.
I could see it. Yeah, he's got the hair down. So, but there'd be a lot more Scarlett Johansson clues if that was the case.
Red wig, red scarlet.
I guess so.
Wig, she has hair.
Very fair. Yeah. So something that has been my takeaway after tonight, and I'm very excited about this. I feel like Gabriel is going to win this season, and I don't want to jinx it, but I am so excited.
Please don't.
I'm so thrilled, Jenny, to live in a world where Gabriel is going to be the winner of Claim to Fame.
We would be so lucky, and whether he wins or not, he has been such like a reality TV standout. Like, I have enjoyed every second of watching him. He's giving us everything. He is entertaining. He's strategic. Like, he's so fun. I will say I question a few of his decisions in tonight's episode, but he is in a position now where of the remaining players, he's one of only 2 people who don't have their clues. Actually, I think no, he's the only one now, because there were 3 available when he went, and it was him, JR, and Olivia, and he correctly chose JR's. Olivia is now eliminated, so he's literally the only wine bottle clue left. So he isn't and he's gotten a lot of information. My issue is that he's being really loosey-goosey with Chris, especially. However,
can't trust Chris.
You can't trust Chris. And I think he is trusting Chris a little too much. I feel after tonight's episode, I have a top 3 people that I think I could see making it to the end of the game.
So out of 6 people, you have just a narrow top 3.
I have 3 people. I have 3 people who I think will probably go next.
Here, let's do the top 3 in a second. Ali, I want to get your take on Gabriel, that we haven't heard you talk about him all season.
First of all, I love the idea when you're like, we're going to live in a world where Gabriel is a claim to fame winner. Like, what would the first 100 days of a Gabriel claim to fame
I don't know.
be?
I don't know.
I feel like, so what's so interesting to me, I have always
spread very thin, you know.
I am unsure.
He has a lot of jobs. Let's talk about his jobs.
Of course, Ralph.
He hosts all his shows.
He's busy. He's booked and busy.
He was filling in for Jamie Foxx on Beach Shazam also.
Oh, is that the, okay. Well, one thing that, I mean, taking it back a step, I am like constantly flummoxed, particularly this season, on what makes the children, like the direct financial beneficiaries. Like if you're someone's niece, nephew, cousin, whatever.
Right.
Unsurprisingly, Akiva and I have debated what relation gets you close enough to getting money from your relative. That's a very NGOG conversation. But like, if you're Eddie Murphy's daughter, what is bringing you to this show? And like, I do think your conversation with Whoopi Goldberg's granddaughter, Amira, was very interesting because Mara, sorry. Because she's like, I'm an artist. I'm not, like, I wish we were learning more about these people, which brings me back to Gabriel. Like, I would like to know, like, Chris talked about his wife this episode. That's interesting. What does Chris do? Like, maybe it's just not interesting to say, I live on residuals from my relative, but like, I want to know why Gabriel is not more famous than Nick Cannon if Nick Cannon is his relative. He is unbelievable.
I think some people are here for like the clout, like they want to sort of get discovered. That I thought that last season where Jenny, who was the sorry to have a senior moment.
Logan Crosby.
Logan, like he wanted to like get his like career out there,
and I think it helped.
And it helped. I think that Chris, the same thing. We saw him play a guitar in the first episode, so I feel like that speaks to if he's not necessarily just trying to win. I think he's also trying to launch something, because why on earth would you play the guitar if you were trying to hide that your dad is a musician, other than you're trying to like make a name for yourself? And I'm sure like Gabriel also is like looking to maybe like do something after the show.
But like, what happened to good old fashioned nepotism? You know, like you're telling me Donny Osmond can't get Chris in the room with the right people from like a music perspective.
They want to do it their way. I think that that's also, what if these people are just competitive? What if these people watch reality TV and they're like, you know what, like, maybe wouldn't do this show or this show, but like, this is perfect. I'm getting probably casting agents directly contacting me, wanting me on this show. I maybe don't need the money too much, but I'm a competitive person. It's a low time commitment. And it's an opportunity to showcase me, where from the jump, I'm not, being known for my relationship to my my famous relative. Because I think for a lot of these people, like they, for the people that do know them in real life and do know who they're related to, that is kind of like a shadow they live in. And if you're someone that is like trying to, start a career in some sort of like entertainment adjacent industry, then like the opportunity to get exposure. And it's not until like your time on the show is about to end that you're connected to somebody and they're like, oh, I don't know. I just think that it's like very possible that some of these people just think that this is like a unique opportunity to get some exposure.
You get to meet the Jonas Brothers.
You get to meet the Jonas Brothers.
Well, everyone meets the Jonas Brothers. We've learned this season.
Well, I will say we did not get a.
They no-sold Jenny McCarthy. Yeah.
No one was.
Your amazing aunt. Tell us about your amazing aunt, Jenny McCarthy.
Yeah, no, they didn't do that this time.
I mean, it's fair, and look, I'm glad they do it, and I think that's how they end up with a great cast. Is like they're people who are talented in their own right, who want some sort of fame or recognition. Like if I were living my dream of my brother being famous and financing my life, I would be in the shadows. Like I wouldn't want any of this attention. But Gabriel is just unbelievable. I have some issue with his clues because like having a burger to reference Good Burger.
Oh, I don't think that was. I don't think that was his.
Correct.
I think that was Jenny McCarthy's clue because that she's married to Donny Wahlberg.
I still think that's a terrible clue for Jenny McCarthy. Like I think some of the justice for the bench
for Jenny McCarthy.
The clues are terrible.
I don't know what clues. Here's the thing: is like I don't know what clues are for Jenny McCarthy at this point.
All right, let's bring up the wall. Okay.
Because
is there a no vaccine sign?
Enhance.
If we also have Nick Cannon in the mix,
who is on a show with Jenny McCarthy.
Exactly.
And even then, maybe Gabriel doesn't watch The Masked Singer. Enhance, Sam. Go zoom in. Let's do it.
Okay, The Mask.
The Mask is Jenny McCarthy.
But or Nick Cannon.
Or Nick Cannon.
Or yes, that's true.
Oh, people were saying the knife.
The knife is that she's in one of the Scream movies.
3, I think that people said. I didn't see that one. What else is Jenny McCarthy here?
Who chews gum? I'm just like, I love this.
No.
This would drive me nutso if I were in the house.
We ever find out what was with the camels? What are the camels?
You guys said one of these last week.
Does she smoke camels?
Does she smoke camels? I don't know.
Someone known for smoking camels.
Who's the ballet slipper? Slippers? I don't know. Shoes? I don't know. Jenny McCarthy did like a shoe campaign, like at some point, but
no, that's a tap shoe.
Is it tap shoes?
I'm gonna say that's a tap shoe. The black shoe.
No, the pink ones are ballet shoes.
No, I know, but the black one in the lower left.
Yes, that's a tap. I think that's
Okay.
Some of these things I have no idea what they are.
I really feel like that of all the people on the show, I feel like that they no-sold that it was Jenny McCarthy was like a relative. Like they buried Olivia. She got like no screen time.
Yeah.
There were almost no clues about Jenny McCarthy.
If truly the Ace Ventura, like the Ace of Hearts clue was for Jenny McCarthy, like I think it's so funny that the clue for her is not even really about her. It's about a fictional character of a person that she previously dated. Like not even her current
not even
partner.
Her husband.
What if the bench was not really Forrest Gump related, but was a nod to Jenny? It's not just Tom Hanks.
Yes.
There's a Jenny in that.
Yes. Forrest Gump has a Jenny.
Okay.
And so, maybe that's what they're saying.
I would love for that to be the case because I've been saying this all season long. I want there to be clues that could be assigned to multiple people. And if they had thought ahead while they were, collecting their yard sale materials to put on the pegboard, thought ahead on things being like, this can be this person, and maybe even this person. And if every single thing actually had like multiple people that it could have been assigned for, then I love it. Because the more ways that you can misdirect people or like put people off of something once someone is revealed, they're like, that was for so-and-so, then that's great. Because I feel like the clues this time are like a little, I don't know. Yeah. I feel like the wine bottle clues are so easy, but maybe I'm looking at this through the lens of someone who like has decided I have more resources. I am talking to people. Like, I don't know.
True.
I mean, the animals could be like wild, a reference to like the Wild and Out. I know you guys thought the microphone made sense for that with the rap battle thing from last week. I don't know, wild. That's the thing, right? We're mostly figuring this out. We, the audience, the whole audience is doing this, is like, I think it's this person. and then these clues do work for that. I would like to see the mole style, like retrospective of like a conversation with the producers explaining where we should have known like all of the clues.
We need a reunion show. This is what they should be doing. Like they're missing, and maybe they will do it this year, but like last season, it would have been so fun to have like a reunion show where like the whole cast, it's a small enough cast that you can get them all together and talk about certain things that they learned throughout the season, and then give us a walk through the clues on the clue wall and what they meant. Like, I just think that that's like a thing that could be tied up in a nice little package at the end of the show. I think Claim to Fame needs a reunion show, and that would be a perfect opportunity to give us some closure on these clues. Tell us what the red herrings are, because they told us that there's some of them mean nothing. Tell us what ended up meaning nothing, and we can get some stories of being like, we were obsessed with those shoes. Like I think that'd be fun. Why?
I do think they need to dispose of the clues that mean nothing, though. Like, I mean, maybe everything's working out perfectly, because even the people last season I thought no one was ever going to get, suddenly like we're reading a book in the diary room and like we're thinking Dean Martin or whatever. Like, they get them there regardless in the right time. But I would be so frustrated as like a player of this game that there are red herring clues, because then why am I even looking at the clue wall?
Let's talk about everything that went on in tonight's episode, okay? Because there was a lot to unpack. Of course, that there was a lot of we had like a lot of incorrect guesses of people that we were trying to work through. We had people thinking that Chris was related to Jim Carrey. We had people thinking that Carson is related to Jeff Gordon. We had people thinking Olivia was related to Carrot Top. So there's a lot of conviction towards wrong guesses. We saw Carson. She has the clue about Chris, but they're starting to talk themselves out of that it's Jim Carrey. That now it's interesting that Jim Carrey was connected to Jenny McCarthy, but I do wonder if that these people seem to even know who Jenny McCarthy is, and that she did in fact at one point date Jim Carrey.
I mean, that will be interesting now that we have, going forward, because now that we have the reveal of Olivia being related to Jenny McCarthy, are people going to say, okay, everything that we thought was Jim Carrey, it could have been maybe something linked to Jenny McCarthy because she dated him for a long time or whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they will have those conversations, but for whatever reason, and it wasn't clear to me, maybe one of you caught it, we get Carson pretty early in the episode saying like, and I think maybe it's after they talked about the clue, but like suddenly she's like, everyone was so convinced that Chris was related to Jim Carrey, but that's gone out the window. And like, maybe it was just the Frankenbiting of it all, because that was before they showed them going through his clue. And it's like, Jim Carrey was not a teen idol in the 70s. Like, they were like, he was born probably in the 60s. He was not famous or a teen idol. So maybe that is what they ultimately determined was against him. But that's the thing, is like, if they were really onto the Jim Carrey clue, it would be interesting to see if the Jenny McCarthy reveal did anything to like sully that. But at this point, it doesn't seem to make a difference. They were already, convinced that it wasn't him. But yeah. It doesn't mean they know who it is, though.
No, definitely not. Let's then get into, Chris and Gabriel, who they had seemingly been on opposite sides of the house throughout a lot of the season. We saw them really coming together here in this episode, and we see that Gabriel, who Monet asked him, pull my clue, and said, don't tell anybody, but now Gabriel is trusting Chris with a lot of information, and he shares that Monet clip, that Monet clue, which ends up being the Saturday Night Live person on Curb Your Enthusiasm. Ali, so how were you feeling about potentially JB Smoove being Monet's dad?
Yeah, so it's so interesting that the clues are easy. Like, I agree with Jenny, the clues feel easy until they're not. Like, I immediately know that Curb Your Enthusiasm plus SNL is JB Smoove. Like, that to me was like 100% a giveaway last week. But if you don't watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, you are flying blind. And that obviously is not a niche show in my mind. But to a certain age bracket and demographic, like 100%. Like it's an extremely niche show in a way. So that was like so fascinating to me. Even more so than the Donny Osmond that people can't get. Like that makes more sense to me. This, I was like, it's JB Smoove. It's JB Smoove.
Yeah. So they're still trying to work it out that Gabriel does not know Curb, and so he will not be recapping this season upcoming with Uncle Kiwi, unfortunately.
And Chris doesn't do it either. Like that's the thing is like you have these two working together, and like this clue is really going to stump them. Which is why those two and Monet are the three that I think are going to the end, because I think that you have these, Gabriel and Chris working together, sharing a lot of information, and people not knowing their people at all at this point. Trying to figure out Monet, who I don't know, if they don't know people who are on Curb Your Enthusiasm, they're probably never going to get there. So I actually think that there's like a non-zero chance Monet is our winner.
Mm-hmm. It's also really going to depend on, like you said before, Gabriel's clue, because Chris didn't even know the show Curb Your Enthusiasm was a show, much less like who's the cast. At least Gabriel's like, yeah, that's a show. There's probably a token black guy on the show. I just don't know who the actor was. Like that's an acceptable amount of information for someone who would then guess like Nick Cannon as, Chris might not have ever heard of Nick Cannon. Like I don't know where Chris has been.
Yeah. I mean, I was a little surprised that he got to Lil Nas X.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have without Gabriel, right?
Right. But he seemed to have heard of Lil Nas X.
Yeah. Here, I'll tell you, I bet you Chris has heard of Lil Nas X, and I bet you he has never heard of DaBaby. Because that was another thing that was a big theme of tonight, was talking about JR potentially being related to DaBaby. And so I think that Chris probably knows who Lil Nas X is, but wouldn't have known who DaBaby is.
Well, so Chris and Gabriel are talking not just about who Monet is related to, but then Chris then shares the Hugo clue, and we get back to this president. They end up talking about a bunch of different presidents. Chris mentions Jimmy Carter, but is leaning a little bit more towards Trump, because that's the president that makes funny faces. If somebody was related to Donald Trump, there would be so many, like it would be that would make Tom Hanks look like the SATs to try to crack that one, because it would be so obvious.
Once again, red wig.
Yeah. You could not even do this with Donald Trump. There'd be a billion clues.
I will just say, like, sorry, I was gonna say, as a Canadian, I know enough about the Trump family that, like, I would feel like if Hugo was a Trump, I would know about him. But maybe I don't know.
You don't know like the Trump like nephews and nieces, except the ones that like come out and write books about him. Like there's probably
but what were Hugo's clues again? Because if we're operating under the assumption that the grandfather part has to be,
I don't believe, I can fact check me on this. I don't believe that Donald Trump has yet won a Nobel Peace Prize. Not yet.
Not yet. There's still time, Rob.
I'm thrilled to go through the clue wall and come up with ways that these clues could link to Donald Trump. But I really do.
Here we go, Ali.
Wow, don't threaten me with a good time.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Well, I don't want to. Can I get myself in trouble?
Technically, it is a clue wall. Okay.
Oh.
I mean, it's a wall. They built a wall.
He loves it.
They built a wall. That's all I'm going to say. That's all you. It was right there. It's right there.
I do think, though, that they are going more off of Hugo's energy in this case, like, which I get. It's like, I'm not saying Hugo is like Trumpian, but he is unpredictable and pretty kooky, and
he's chaotic.
Whatever.
He's a chaotic guy,
and he likes that kind of chaotic energy. So I really do think they're not really paying attention. Like, yes, they have the faces. A lot of it, and a lot of this episode with the challenge, which I'm sure we'll talk about in great detail, is very like confirmation bias. And so it's like, oh, there's crazy faces. Hugo's a weirdo. He's probably related to Donald Trump. I think that they've lost the thread on the actual clues.
For sure. Okay. We see JR talking to Monet, and he's trying to still sell the basketball thing, and he's telling a story about how his celebrity relative ends up in the middle of a game having to leave to go to the bathroom. But Jenny, he inadvertently then ends up telling us about how Lil Nas X apparently had to go poop during a concert.
Yeah, and apparently like announced it to the audience that like, sorry guys, I'll be right back. I got to do a number 2. Which now I like when we're done podcasting, I am going to search to see if this is a story that people have talked about. Because like was anyone at a Lil Nas X concert and was like, Lil Nas X just told us he had to take a shit? Like, like that is something I need to know if it's true, if anyone can like vouch for the story.
Well, what's okay. Anyway, yes. I don't know what I have to take a number 2. No, that's not. I thought you were going to say no. I don't know what would be like. Okay, I'll say this. I don't understand what possesses. I guess you have to be there and you have to relate to people. And we saw like Shane say like, oh, I was at Michael Jackson's house with my relative. Like, I don't know why anybody, particularly this late in the game, is volunteering information about their celebrity relative that they don't have to volunteer.
It's a great point.
Yeah. I mean, if it's the kind of thing where it's like this could easily happen on a basketball court or at a concert, I guess I get it. There's no way to fact check it in the house, but I will say I did have to do a cheeky little Google search. I couldn't wait a second longer, just like Lil Nas X could not wait a second longer. This is a real story. I'm finding.
I was familiar with this story. I wasn't sure when you said you wanted to look after the podcast was over if it would be considered a spoiler to have been familiar with this information.
People will find this after, so
that's why. Well, I wasn't sure if you didn't want to be spoiled. Okay, because
no, I've been pretty convinced on the Lil Nas X, so I think that it's fair to see if there's a story of Lil Nas X had to poop.
Yeah, I don't think that would be
I remember this story. Like it wasn't that long ago,
See,
and I like. Lil Nas X like makes national headline. Like he does things that are like flash in the pan stories that people aren't thinking about later, but they're like memorable. Like it's memorable to me at least. And I mean, so the risk that you would tell somebody that story and they might know, especially when you're in the gray zone of rapper versus. I was very surprised by that decision.
That is a good point. I mean, I had not heard this story, but yeah, there's always a chance that Monet had heard that story before and was like, I feel like I remember a story about, and especially if, now if she gets information from Gabriel or Chris that like they think it could be Lil Nas X, maybe it triggers a memory being like, oh my God, the poop story. I remember seeing a headline. Maybe this very headline I'm looking at right now, Lil Nas X forced to leave stage mid-show due to a poop emergency, I'm taking
colon problem?
Colon.
I'm taking a mean S.
Okay.
Quote. That's a quote.
Yeah, because I just feel like if I heard that story from like somebody as JR was telling, I would have so many follow-up questions. Like, well, what did they do with the game? Like, it was just like they just kept playing. Yeah,
they just like put somebody else in. Like, is he a big enough? Like, I would assume that he's a big enough.
Did they take a timeout? What did they do?
I also feel like that would make. I also feel like that would be a story in a basketball game, such that if like Monet is not a basketball fan, maybe she says if Gabriel is, although Gabriel's not a sports person, but like if there's someone who's a sports person in the house and she's like, does this ring a bell? I don't know. Like maybe this happens all the time. I actually remember a comedian doing a video about like there was a report of a guy who either in football or basketball like ran off and came back in time, like after being in the bathroom for like 2 minutes. Anyway, it's a great bit, but like I feel like sports people would have heard that story and music people would have heard this like actual story. And I'm not even a music person. I'm just on Twitter formerly.
All right. Well, JR, he's not thinking this through and he tells the story and it's going to be a little bit in the episode that we're going to finally find everything in the JR House of Cards is going to come down because it's time to get into our lie detector.
Yeah.
Can I say one quick thing, not to break the momentum, but it's sort of my thing. In defense of short kings, like there was a lot of height shaming of DaBaby, and maybe not height shaming, but like this tall man could never be related to that very, very short rapper. Lil Nas X, not much taller than DaBaby. I did look this up because
really?
It's like 1.5 inches difference according to Google.
Yeah. So, all right.
That's it. Sorry, had to just, in defense of short kings.
The thing is like from some of the things I've read about DaBaby, like him being disgraced for being short is probably the least of his problems. But we're always here to defend short kings. And it is a good point. There are many people who have a very tall sibling and then they're a small person. Like it's not a one size fits all kind of thing when it comes to genetics. Like this is a thing that happens. And that was the only thing that they were pointing to. They're like, it couldn't possibly be DaBaby. He's so small, and JR is so tall.
Yeah. Well, I think because he goes by DaBaby, people think he's smaller. If he was the grown up, people wouldn't think he was that height.
The giant.
The giant. Okay. All right. Let's talk about our interrogation game. Now, Jenny, last season, in my mind, that they did a full-on lie detector last season. This was like when I go to the dentist, it's like, all right, let's get your blood pressure. Right?
I would fail this.
This was a Fitbit.
Like big time. Because
it wasn't even blood pressure. It was your heart rate.
It was your heart rate, yeah. And again, I will say like they did amplify this challenge from last year. Like they definitely they made it a little extra. The IR scanner, is that what they called it? Where that was like the blacklight type thing that was showing Gabriel's pit stains while he's sweating. This didn't seem as intense as the literal polygraph that
they had a literal polygraph last season. Now they upped the stakes by bringing in Eric Andre of the Prank Panel, also on ABC.
Oh, that's who
Are you serious?
That's Detective Derek Levasseur to me.
Yes,
so.
Detective Derek.
Wait, he is unrecognizable.
I thought it was.
Call for images?
Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe I could be wrong. I thought it was Eric Andre.
If you have Eric Andre, why aren't you highlighting he's Eric Andre?
No. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think he was in character. Maybe it's Eric Andre's brother.
It makes way more sense because they gave a lot of airtime to like an extra if it wasn't
it would be
Andre.
Really random.
But he is
Eric Andre's cousin.
Oh,
aspiring improviser. Derek and his name was Derek. Eric.
Oh, they just threw the D on to Eric. Yeah. Okay.
Is he still with
Detective Derek?
I'm sorry, Ali?
Sorry, Ali?
Is Eric Andre? Oh no, Eric Andre is no longer with Emrata. I was gonna say, do you think Emrata watches Claim to Fame? Anyway, sorry, they were dating inexplicably.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Kudos to them. Kudos to Eric Andre for being such a chameleon that he was unrecognizable.
That's what he does. Prank shows.
Yeah.
He's master of disguise.
He really leaned into this character of Detective Derek.
Detective Derek.
Where that's just who he was. We couldn't recognize him.
I will say expectations are everything because now that I know it was Eric Andre, I was a little disappointed in the performance, to be honest. Oh! When it was just like some extra off the street, I was like, wow, this person's really committing. Just a note.
So Ali, you mentioned earlier that there was like a lot of cognitive bias that was going on here with whatever people wanted the answers to be. If the heart rate went up, got him. The heart rate went down, got him. Got their ass.
Which is, I mean, look, this challenge was looking camp right in the eye because I at first was like, same with Rob, like, you go to like the urgent care and they're popping this on your finger and being like 90 beats a minute, you're fine, whatever. I don't know what a heart rate is. But like I did they amped up everything else. Like obviously Detective Derek, like the visuals, like all the fake technology was like really, really high production. And I don't think they want anyone to get any information out of this. So at least we had fun with it. Like at first I was upset, and then I was like, you know what? Not upset, but I was like, oh, this feels like a waste. Then I leaned into the skid and was like, this is the greatest thing to ever hit television. This made no sense. I didn't follow what the paperwork was when they were like, get your paperwork in. I was like, oh, they're like guessing what was true and what was false.
Yeah.
Got it.
My question was, like, I didn't even know how this was a contest. I don't know how Gabriel won, and I don't know how Olivia and Chris lost.
So they had basically, I think, at a quiz at the end where they had to go through each of the questions that each person was asked and guess how many things were lies and how many things were truths. And I guess like they just got a score out of, I don't know, like 50 or something like that.
Okay.
That was, and then whoever had the highest was Gabriel, obviously. And then who had the two people the lowest were the ones in the bottom two. But that part was kind of lost in the shuffle, like that they were having to not only, pose these questions and then also like keep track of the questions that were asked and whether they thought they lied or not during them.
Yeah. Jenny, if I recall last year, I feel like it was also like the lie detector was kind of like convoluted, and that they were like, there was like a poker table and you were like playing a card, and then there was so there was a lot of stuff going on. They haven't cracked this one yet.
Yeah, they did better though, I think. Like I think that this was better produced. But also it's like it was kind of silly, and like your heart rate is going to raise if you're laughing. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, what happens if Detective Derek just does something especially funny? He threw coffee in his own face at one point. Like you're trying to tell me that you're not going to react to that and your heart isn't going to go up a little bit because you're laughing at how ridiculous this is? Like it.
Oh, that's great to know because on these podcasts, I'm going to get closer to closing my rings today.
Yeah.
That's what's great though about this challenge. That's why 10 out of 10 no notes. It's like the lap dancing competition in Love Island where like they put a heart rate monitor on and like who raised your heart rate the most. Like you're probably going to be more comfortable with the person you're with if you're like really with them, and be more freaked out by like some strange woman like dancing on you and you're trying not to raise your heart rate because there's like pressure and whatever. And it means nothing, and it creates a whole tizzy. What I loved about this too is like, I believe it was out of 60, which makes no sense. Like they didn't, first of all, they asked so many questions then that we didn't see. Presumably it's 1 point a question. And it was not evenly, like, it's not a multiple of 7. Like the rules don't matter. This is like complete scam. I love it. And the only thing to me, the big reveal would be like Gabriel as the winner presumably not has the best ability to like read them, but probably has the best idea of who's who. So like for Chris to lose when he has arguably some of the most information, to me says he's really not on the right track. Whereas Gabriel, like presumably you're like confirming the answers you think are a lie or true based on who you think their relative is. And this to me says Gabriel's like really on the right track.
I think that Chris is like smart and is like has a very strategic mind. I think where he is lacking is just like pop culture and knowledge. And that's why he is having to like that is why it's so beneficial for him to be working with Gabriel, because Gabriel even though Gabriel isn't a sports guy, like he seems to know enough about general references in pop culture to be somewhat helpful. Whereas like what areas does Chris really know about? Because I haven't seen him be like leading the force on like narrowing down names. He's just very good at like the social strategic part of the game, like working with people, giving them information, getting information back from them, like getting, things to happen the way he wants them to. That's where he's really excelling. But like, I don't see him being like, that clue is definitely this person.
And I think that what Gabriel is doing so well is that he's so likable. Everybody loves him in the house and everybody shares their information with him and they're not really threatened by him. at all, where I feel like that Chris, I think he reads as very cagey also. So yeah, he's able to sort of like
Nick
make some
Cagey.
deals in the house. Yeah, Nick Cagey even sometimes.
That was a
But
person that they connected
cage
to him
free
early
eggs,
on.
right. And while some people like are like willing to share information with him, then also some people are targeting him. I thought it was very big in this episode that later on we're going to see Monet is even working with Chris. So I thought that that was a big thing for him, because I feel like that I think that Chris was lucky that Cole came along and really became the eye of like Monet's ire, and then Chris was able to sort of like move in and sort of jump sides of the house. But yeah, Gabriel just has such great ties with everybody, and it's really, other than Carson, that's the one person who's really not working with anybody. And I think that if they can just figure out who she's related to or send her into the guest off, I think that they're good.
Well, and I think that Carson's in real trouble now. Like, I think, yes, obviously it's great that Olivia did not guess you correctly and you didn't go, but like this had to have been like the second worst thing that could have happened to her here, because Olivia was one person who was working with Carson. And I really think she's not super close with any of these people left, and they don't have her best interests at heart. And also, now they know it's not Jeff Gordon. And we've now heard Dale Earnhardt Jr. mentioned again. They asked her in this challenge, is your relative a junior? She says no. They seem to believe it.
Junior.
So I don't think that there's anything stopping them from being like, who is another NASCAR driver? We clearly think it is a NASCAR driver. It's not Jeff Gordon. Like, I think that Carson is in trouble. And she's got no one really helping her now. I feel like they're probably going to just guess another big NASCAR name at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I thought that, I'm glad you brought up the junior question, because again, like the challenge had no parents, no rules, which was fine with me, but like asking if someone's a junior feels a little bit too close to like, is your relative's name Donald? Like, I feel like you couldn't ask who someone's relative was, and you shouldn't have been able to ask like parts of their name, including junior. But yeah, I mean, the only other race car driver I know is like Danica Patrick, right? And I feel like those are the big three that people are aware of, unless you watch, I don't know, NASCAR or Drive to Survive, which is not NASCAR.
The only thing was, Ali, that they don't reveal whether or not that person was right or wrong. So you could ask them anything and they could say yes or no. So, like,
but I have to believe they couldn't let them ask their name. Like, otherwise people would have asked, why would you ask, are they a junior? They were only asking after one person. Then they would have said, is it, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, one of the things that I noticed about the questions that were being asked is for like 90% of them, they were like yes or no questions. But then, which I thought, like,
end, right?
I thought that was like the pattern that they were supposed to be following, like yes or no questions. But then they ask,
how old is your relative?
Well, they asked Gabriel, like, what team did your relative play for, where he has to name a team. I was like, I thought we were doing yes or no. Like, I thought you had to say, has your relative played for the Seattle Seahawks, not name a team. Was that, I can't remember if that was, it was again,
it was JR. Yeah.
Was it JR? And they were asking about,
and he said Miami Heat. Yeah.
But they also asked, I think they asked Gabriel about the Seattle Seahawks. But yes, they asked JR a team that his relative played for, and he said Miami Heat. So I was like, I thought that we were supposed to be yes or no questions. Like, wasn't even following the same patterns, but
no regulations here.
No.
Detective Derek is probably not even properly credentialed. I'd like to see his badge.
Show me your badge, sir. I don't know. This is instead of Detective Derek Levasseur pretending to be whatever he was, this is some random man pretending to be a detective.
So Chris ends up going next, and what is useful for us is to know, like, what does the house have on these people? We see them asking about Ace Ventura. He says nope. But then they pivot to, was your relative a teen idol in the 70s? Chris actually says yes. He admitted it. And so, but I mean, if you're Chris, you're bulletproof, because nobody knows any teen idols from the 70s.
I'm really curious to hear your guys's opinion on this, your expert opinion, because I know, you guys have properly deciphered, I think, the strategy for the two truths and a lie to like not tell two things directly in conflict such that the other one is confirmed. I think that's genius. What do you do here, right? Because we only saw who's the one who said nope. Oh, JR is the only person who said like nope to both the NBA and professional rapper, which I think is the right play. Just like say the same answer for everything.
Yeah.
What like a lot of them told the truth, I think.
No, yeah. It did seem like a lot of them told the truth. And Chris kind of said, I think I did a bad job. Like, I think he kind of knew that he was like, he was just trying to stay baseline.
And he was one of the
but
first people to go.
Yeah. Unless like that question was so specific that he's gotten enough intel on what his clue was that, like, is it possible that he got enough information through Jane thinking that Monet pulled her clue to know that if someone is asking a question about Teen Idol in the 70s, he's like, okay, well, clearly they know that that's part of my clue. So if I say no, they're going to know I'm lying. So I might as well just say yeah.
Right. That's fair.
Yeah.
And it is the idea that that's the only way. I mean, but either way, if he says, yes, I'm trying to think if the strategy is not just to deceive them, but to make it so that they can't get the points correctly. If like, presumably you don't want to end up in the bottom, like maybe Chris ends up in the bottom because everyone got points off of him that he didn't get because everyone knew his answers were truthful. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, that's possible.
He just couldn't get his own points. Yeah.
Let's talk about JR, who goes in. And so he's asked, is your celebrity in the NBA? He says, no. Is your celebrity a rapper? He says, no. And then name a team that your celebrity relative was on. He said Miami Heat.
Which is hilarious after you saying, no, he's not an NBA player. They're like, okay, well, name a team that he's played for. And he's like, I would have been like, just told you they don't play in the NBA.
Well, there's an interesting back and forth, I feel like, between Gabriel and JR. Like, both of them, like, know the other one is lying, and they're both trying to, like, maintain that their celebrity relative is an athlete, and neither of them are athletes.
And do they know? Like, I feel like Hugo is, like, the person in the house that knows the most about sports. Because, like, Hugo's the one that's like, he looks just like Dwayne Wade. I don't even think that JR really knows a ton about sports. I know Gabriel says he doesn't, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like either of them know enough to like suss out the other one because they can't confirm based on sports knowledge.
I mean, JR's questions to Gabriel about Julius Peppers seemed pretty targeted or knowledgeable.
I forgot about that.
Were they not?
With all due respect to Julius Peppers, like I do not know if Julius Peppers is like of the caliber of that. Who was Jenny? Who was the fake guest last season? That somebody ended up guessing.
Fake guess for who?
For in season 1, that was the one where that they really were trying to go with somebody a day.
Oh, it was Andre Day. It was Andre Day.
Yeah,
for Kai,
yes,
right?
Thank you, Sam. But yeah, Julius Peppers is like a I guess a great NFL player, probably a Hall of Famer, but I don't know. I don't think that would. I think that would be I don't think he's a household name, with all due respect to the Peppers family.
Which do you think makes more sense? The Julius being the clue for the Caesar, whatever, the JB Smoove advertises, or someone's name? Like, I think there have been some niche clues even for some big celebrities. And in fairness, JR doesn't know he only knows his own celebrity, right? And I guess who's been revealed. But I would think that anybody in like professional sports was famous enough, especially if their relative is Gabriel. Like, you could have the minus celebrity, and I would want to put Gabriel on this cast.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about Olivia. And so they're asking about Carrot Top. Does your relative have orange hair? Does your relative use props in their stand-up act? Tell me, is this a crackpot theory? I think production did not like Olivia.
Oh.
I think that she got far and away the least amount of screen time in the season of any of the cast members. We only got to see her answering 2 of the questions, and it wasn't like because that they were like cracked the case on her. I just feel like that of all the people that they had, she maybe gave them the least.
I could see that. I mean, I definitely don't think she popped as much as some of these people. And she even said in this episode, when Chris was giving her information, which was like misleading, but we'll get to that. Like, I have no information. I have no clues. So I'm appreciative that he's giving me information. So it seems like, she wasn't popping a lot on the screen and maybe not getting a lot of confessionals because they maybe just weren't that like good. But also it just didn't seem like she was like really well positioned in the game. Maybe she was just like not playing very hard compared to everyone else. So producers were like, well, what are we supposed to do with this? Like, she's not well integrated. She's not getting information from people. She doesn't have theories on people because she doesn't have information. Like, what are you supposed to do edit wise with that person?
Mm-hmm.
And they have no information on her, so you're not getting a lot. Like,
nobody's talking about her. Right?
Yeah, like you can't be doing confessionals about her to like address the theories about her because no one had any.
It might be the case also that they decided there was more value in like the shock value of the reveal than there was in like airing what were probably mid confessionals.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I was also impressed because I underestimated Olivia, like probably a lot of the people in the house based on what little we saw of her. Her responses in the lie detector were like pretty good, well acted performances where she was like, no, like I thought she was doing a good job of acting like someone who was lying, even though she was telling the truth. That again confirmed my bias that I thought it was Carrot Top. And like maybe it was a little put on if I watched it back before I really was believing the Jenny McCarthy stuff. But I was impressed with what little strategy we saw from her. So I have to believe that we just weren't seeing a lot of like energetic confessionals to rival the Monets, the Gabriels, everyone else.
Yeah. And she I mean, she was technically right about Hugo. Like, she was the one that kept on going back to I think it's Jimmy Carter. And so I don't think that, like, with the information she did have, I don't think that she was, totally off base. It just didn't seem that anyone was like working that closely with her and like feeding her a lot of information. Perhaps just because they're like, well, I need to know a little bit more about you to be like giving you a lot of ammo, because if you give somebody like Olivia too much power and no one knows anything about her, like that's a dangerous person in the game. Which is why like Chris is in such a like wild position here, because like there is information about him out there, but because no one knows what to do with it, like people are giving him more information and giving him even more power, and they're never going to be able to do anything about it. Like they can't get a second clue on him from the, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It is just kind of wild, but I feel bad for Olivia. I think that she was probably like, smarter than they gave us, because everyone seemed genuinely shocked by her exit and being like, oh man, she was better than we thought.
Let's talk about Gabriel. Okay, here's Gabriel, and of course that we see on the infrared camera, sweaty pits for Gabriel.
It's me. You try being strapped up to that level of equipment and not sweating.
That's true.
Trying to fool the
Detective
high
Derek.
tech.
Yeah.
I get it though. It was probably like a hot room. There was like a bright light over him. Like that alone was probably going to make me sweat. It's like when you go to the doctor and then they take your blood pressure and you're like, well, of course my blood pressure is going to be bad right now. I'm not in a normal situation. Like you're stressing me out.
Yeah.
So like, what do you expect? He's going to sweat.
Okay. But he's also going to just like try to gum up the works. His relative plays in the NFL. Doesn't play for the Seattle Seahawks, and then plays offense and defense, which is very rare. It's very rare.
And won a Heisman
Trophy. Yes. So there's a lot going on with Gabriel. let's see. Hugo goes. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, before we move off of Gabriel and his questions, like they freaking blew it in only asking questions about football. Like they are so narrow. Like at least with JR, like they're considering that maybe he isn't a basketball player and it could be something with music. With Gabriel, they are so laser focused on the fact that it's football. They didn't ask a single question not related to football. Like I just felt like that was a total whiff by everyone else. Like at least ask one question that could have something to do with anything else besides football, instead of being like, let's just try and figure out what football player. Like you're not even considering it could be a completely different thing. No,
locked in.
What are they doing? I don't know. I just thought that was like a big misfire.
I'm looking at what they have because I guess there was no clue really last week in the game that would have said football, right?
Well, there is a football play up on the clue wall now. I think that we have an older version of the clue wall here.
No, but even the clue wall, though, where there could be misdirects, right? Like the challenges to me, like even his picture, like I just looked and it's like, okay, it's a yellow and red star. And I think they thought that was like, oh, Cowboys or something, right? Right. Because it's like a propeller hat and something else. I just looked, I already forgot. And drumsticks. Not sure. Is the propeller hat in a cannon? Anyway. But like, what was the clue? If everybody has a dedicated clue in the limerick, what are they reaching for? That would be football. Like, I feel like they should have. At first, when I started saying this, I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt of like, well, they don't have much else to go on. Like, it's not like they've seen his wine bottle clue and can be asking like their instincts like they can with Chris versus the clue. But nothing in last week's challenge confirmed the football piece, and they probably should have tried to like grab one of those things and ask about it, even if it was like guitar or microphone or whatever.
Like if they have multiple questions that we're obviously not seeing all of them, and maybe they did ask another one, and they are like, the editors want us to be as in the dark as possible on who Gabriel is. I just felt like it was like, why not ask something related to non-football to see if you can like narrow something down. But also Gabriel was just doing such a great job just giving the most BS responses to everything that they're probably like, whatever. Like he's like, we're not going to figure out what he's lying about because he's probably just lying about everything.
Yeah. And I think that that's the right way. I think that you want to approach this, Ali, as you were asking about the optimal strategy. I think give them nothing. You're not under oath. They didn't swear you in with Detective Derek. Okay.
Also, your heart rate doesn't drop that dramatically. The questions are being asked like in quick succession, presumably. And like, it's not like you're going to have this like spike on the finger monitor, like question to question.
Well, they apparently had a minute to come up with each question, and then Kevin would send it down to Detective Derek to ask. But also, I love that Detective Derek would like take liberties and like how to like phrase the question. Like he was really like improv god here, you know?
Okay. So then we have Hugo, and Hugo, I feel like that he has not given us much throughout the season, but has given us at least interesting approaches to the challenges. We saw him with like the electricity ab belt have a totally different approach. And here he is going to like try to get his heart rate as high as possible before he even sits in the chair. And so I guess his heart rate just drops when they ask him questions. They want to know, has your celebrity been president in the last 8 years? And he says no, right?
I love this because he said no after they asked, has he ever been president? He was like, no. And they're like, in the last 8 years. Oh, no.
Definitely not a president.
They got 2 for on that one.
Yeah, he was jumping the gun. He was ready for the question.
But then how old is your celebrity relative that he confirmed it? He says 98.
And he took a second to think about it. And to be fair, like I think I would probably have to take a second to think about my grandfather's age too. Yeah. So I mean,
yeah. And so
how old Jimmy Carter is?
Jimmy Carter is 98. I mean, I feel like that was like kind of a misfire, like because that was a very specific answer there that they know that his relative is a president.
I mean, why? Like, what do you think he should have said no? Oh wait, sorry. He should have just made up a different
6 years
69.
old.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be the answer.
Number 420. Yeah.
Yeah. This is not, again, this was camp. This was theater. This was just fun. No information. I mean, if they want to say, they could have just easily said, oh, Hugo is lying about everything. So he gave us Jimmy Carter's age to throw us off. As easily as they could say he was honest, versus the brilliant challenge last year, which was what was it? You had to eat hot peppers unless you revealed towards the end in the final, where you really have to choose truth or dare, basically. That is interesting and high stakes. This is theater, which I love.
I appreciated it. Okay. It was at least an interesting way to, show us what kind of things they're narrowing on.
However, that maybe did Hugo save his own life in the game? Okay, this is where we're going to get serious for a second. All right, what political party is your relative? And he says Republican. And Olivia's like, well, can't read him. Can't read him. And Olivia was leaning towards Jimmy Carter. Ali, did Hugo throw Olivia off the scent enough that she ends up trying to go for Carson in the guess-off?
I think it's probably more... While we've seen a lot of people choose... I was going to say that she chose, maybe she felt like she had more of a connection with Hugo after they exchanged fake information, but she did pick her best friend to call out. I think in the guess off, we've seen all season with Cole, with, people pick the sure bet. They can't take the risk there in the guess off. And I think, it's not that Hugo saying Republican in 98 threw her off. It was there are two plausible in her mind responses, and she's been told by everyone that there's only one plausible answer for Carson. So, and Carson played her like a fiddle. So I think Carson saying towards the end of it's okay, I'd rather go home to you. Maybe she'd been doing that and we didn't see it on camera. And she was a very convincing.
If you have to guess me, I think you should go for Hugo, but if you do, I don't know. I mean, we don't know. We didn't see a lot of their relationship. I definitely agree with you, Ali, though. The fact that there were two potential answers on the board for Hugo and the what if I pick the wrong one, the pressure of that. Whereas at least with Carson, there was only really one name out there, except for the fact that Olivia was the first person that we saw on the show say the name Dale Earnhardt Jr. during the statue challenge with the tire. And they specifically asked about a junior in the challenge. And then we literally had Carson say to Chris when she was at the stake the week that Shane went home that they're going to guess Jeff Gordon. I think I'm going to be okay. They're wrong. And that clearly got out to people, but people just decided to go back to being well, she must have just been trying to throw people off the scent. So we're going to go back to only one NASCAR driver when they were aware of another name. That's the wild thing about it, is that there technically was more than one name out there for a NASCAR driver, but just didn't seem like Earnhardt really made any
they got
traction.
Locked in. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I guess it just one safer guess, and maybe Chris ended up doing a really good job of trying to make Olivia doubt the Jimmy Carter clue because of the him trying to sell Donald Trump. I don't know.
Yeah, and not an easy sale, but you did it. Okay, all right. Monet wants to know, or she goes up, is your relative a game show host? She says yes. Now, Ali, interestingly, JB Smoove has hosted, at least would we consider Last Comic Standing a game show?
Rob, I was going to ask you. I would say yes. Or
that was the first podcast I ever did with Mike Bloom.
Yes, enough to. Isn't that where the Mike Bloom?
That's what he used to. He's let's give it up for Ali Lasher.
Is that where that originated?
Yeah, I think that was the original.
Wow, that's RHAP history right there.
That should be on the clue wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a game show.
Certainly enough to fool the blood pressure monitor. I think it's ambiguous enough. What did she ask that? When she was define game show?
Yeah. Okay. Then is your celebrity an actor? She says yes. Was your celebrity ever on 30 Rock? Now, this is one that I feel like IMDb probably would have needed to settle for us.
Because a lot of people
think no.
30
I
Rock
did a
at
quick
some point.
Google.
Yes.
I did a quick Google. Obviously, that was a Tracy Morgan targeted question, but
Yes.
it's not helpful. It's like saying with someone on Seinfeld. Like a lot of people were on Seinfeld who are not in the core four. A lot of people on 30 Rock as guest actors. I don't think, JB Smoove was one of them.
Yeah, it's nothing's coming up on a quick search for me out of curiosity here. 30 Rock IMDb.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. But I mean, I don't think that like that's the problem is like these people don't know Curb Your Enthusiasm. So I don't think that they're going to get there. Like without some other very, very revealing clue. I don't know. Like, do you think that some of these people, if they're not familiar with Curb Your Enthusiasm, are familiar enough with JB Smoove from other stuff? That's the question,
I would
right?
say that maybe the only other chance we have are Carson and Hugo have not seen that clue. Mm-hmm. And it is entirely possible that Carson or Hugo may have seen Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I'm going to say Hugo maybe. I don't see Carson watching. I don't know. Maybe I don't know why.
Say more about that. I'm like
I don't know. I just don't know. Like, what does Carson do? Like, what's
that's why we need to know more about these people so that we can know what they'll know. I need to know what they'll know.
I love how much like strategic stuff we get from them. Like, I love, talking about the exchange of information, all of this stuff. I do wish we got to know a little bit more about the people because I don't really know a lot about Carson. And so it's hard for me to like guess what kinds of things she might know. But that was just a vibe thing. I was like, I don't know if Carson's watched Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I had the same thought for what it's worth that Hugo, I just would assume that he's encountered it in the wild somehow. Maybe one of his girlfriends who's interrogating him had him watch it or something.
Was that multiple girlfriends that have interrogated him, or was he referring to his like current girlfriend?
Yeah, Hugo's a nightmare in like a great way for TV.
Yeah.
Has JR gotten that clue also?
I don't think
no, it's definitely just been between it's just been between Gabriel and Chris that have seen it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know.
So that's gonna get out.
I don't think JR knows a lot about because I think JR is in a similar spot that Olivia was in that like I don't think that people have shared a ton of information with him.
But I just feel like that that maybe they don't get it from that clue, but maybe there will be other clues that come up for JB Smoove, especially for Gabriel, that we think his brother is Nick Cannon, who's also a comedian. Like, I think that it's possible. Okay, so Gabriel doesn't watch sports. Like, what does he do?
Right.
I think it's possible that he might know who, popular comedians are.
He's right on the verge too. Again, he's like, saying Tracy Morgan, like he's right there. And so I do think he might even have recall. Like maybe right now he doesn't know who was on Curb Your Enthusiasm, but if he gets some sort of like smooth, like some sort of thing that gives him the name, he can like be like, oh yeah, he probably was on that show.
We're probably gonna get like we're getting a lot of like versions of challenges from last season. We're probably gonna get that 6 degrees of separation challenge that we got near the end of last season. So I feel like that could be something that could really help maybe Gabriel figure out JB Smoove, just depending on like other people that he could be connected to. If you don't know Kerr, but like he's gonna get some other names that he's like connected to, that could be very helpful. So I think that could be like a turning point for a few people's games.
All right, so we have a lot of strategy to work through here. So that Chris and Olivia, they're going to be in the bottom two. Gabriel wins the challenge. And so this is going to put Chris in a precarious position where he feels like that he has a slam dunk in that it is Jeff Gordon is Carson's relative. That is an incorrect assumption. He would be eliminated if he did that. And he's not 100% sure, but he feels like that's his best bet. He ends up talking with Monet. And so he is interested in seeing, is it whose clue? Monet has Hugo's clue?
No,
I'm sorry.
Monet
Carson's.
gave
Monet
her
has Carson's
Carson's
clue. Got it.
which was from Shane.
Yes. Okay. You didn't get it from me. She's like, yeah, you want to eliminate Carson? Here, have at it. Go for it. See if you can figure it out.
I love Monet. Sorry, just have to add that.
No, she's so good.
And they look at it. It's like, and then also that we're gonna bring Monet in to look at Hugo's clue also.
Yes.
There's a lot of clue sharing going on now between Monet, Gabriel, Chris. A lot of clue sharing going on. And they ultimately crack that, no pun intended, commander-in-chief who farmed nuts.
Farmed
Jane
emojis.
Was right. Farmed emojis? Yeah.
Like, who farmed emojis?
Like emojis, Jenny? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. We got the flashback to night one. Jane looking at the wall, looking at the peanuts, and said, oh, maybe Jimmy Carter. So.
Look, I'm big enough to admit that I was not familiar with our former president's agricultural history.
Yeah.
But I'm learning. This is an educational show. Some people are
Yeah.
learning what Curb Your Enthusiasm is. I'm learning about
Jimmy Carter's
our country's
Yes.
history. Jimmy Country's peanuts. Yeah.
All right. Well, now, okay, we know this about Hugo, but like, wouldn't it be better to vote in Olivia? Because then Olivia could go for Carson. And I feel like, Jenny, we've seen this a lot this season where people are like, okay, let's put this person in. Best case scenario, they're right about a person that we don't like. Worst case scenario, they go home. Win-win.
And I think this is great from Gabriel. Like, Gabriel is pushing his agenda and it's working because it's, there's a situation here where like, okay, Monet and Chris are 100% on Hugo. Like, we can just get rid of Hugo. And it's just like, well, or we could potentially get out Carson, who is someone that we are not, working with, isn't giving us information. And if Olivia's wrong, then she goes home. Another person we have no information on, like, where and Gabriel I think also has a good relationship with Hugo, so he's kind of protecting Hugo at the same time, where it's like, okay, he's a layup for Chris here, but now he's a layup for you or Monet, and so it's like, maybe I might be in the bottom next week and I might not have another person to get rid of. Like, I'm not at risk here. Let's get somebody else out of this picture, out of the game here, because if I'm really stuck next week, then I can take out Hugo. And maybe Hugo is helping me. Like, I loved this from Gabriel, and it seemed like it took no convincing. Like, they were like, yeah, actually, no, that's great. But it does make sense. Like, for Chris, I don't think that's a bad move either. It's like, keep him out of the guessing position. He doesn't have to potentially guess Carson and be wrong, or like take out someone he's been working with. And yeah, best case scenario, like, one of the two people that you're not really getting anything from is leaving.
Here's a question I have. Your clue is still, I totally agree with you. And it's one of the reasons I'm a Gabriel truther for winning the season, because it's like a callback to, like, the niece Hanks, who is screaming about how even Gabriel knew what the bench meant. And now Gabriel is like the brains of this whole operation. But and I'm just thinking of this now, like, should Gabriel do the same plan, but blindside Chris here? Because you have all of Chris's information, you have Chris's clue, and you don't know who he is, and send him in before your clue gets pulled and Chris has information on you. Like, at this point, Chris is very unlikely to call out Gabriel. And then, you also don't have Olivia's clue. So presumably you might be able to get Olivia when you see her clue. The dangerous people, I think, how you guys have called out, are the people whose clue you see and you still don't know.
I think just for Gabriel here, it's like, it's a delicate situation, because as much as Chris is a threat to him and is someone that, like, him being eliminated by guessing someone wrong is probably the best way to get rid of him at this point, if no one has any idea who his celebrity is. Like, there are other people left in the game that Gabriel also doesn't have information on, that aren't feeding him information, whereas Chris is. So it's like he kind of is like riding this line of like, I need to keep Chris around a little bit longer because he's giving me information and doesn't seem to be going for me. Whereas these other people, like these Olivias and Carsons, are a little bit more threatening to him.
I also think that for Gabriel, that Chris might be a little bit of a blind spot. I don't think he knows necessarily how duplicitous Chris has been over because Chris, I feel like, hasn't really gotten caught. I feel like that the closest Chris came to getting caught, that he was able to really throw Jane under the bus, and everybody's like, Mama Jane, can't trust her. Everybody's got to go after Jane. And then I feel like that Chris was able to kind of get away with some of the double dealing that he was doing. And I also think that this group is thinking about, okay, who can we control, like, for the guess off every single week? And I feel like if they get rid of Chris, then they feel like, well, okay, well, the Olivia Carson side of the house, they're going to have two numbers. And what are we going to have? Are we going to be able to like control the guess off if we want to make sure that we get the person we want guessing? So I think it was a little bit of a numbers game too.
One thing I've been wondering about was like, the whole thing that happened with Jane guessing Chris as Elvis Presley, and like, it was mostly Shane and Monet that were sharing the clue at that time, but like Monet has had a lot of time with Chris's clue and, knows enough about what it says that like, how has there not been any conversation? Because I can't remember who else was there when Chris left the room and went to Jane and said, they pulled my clue. And they have this like conversation of like, Puppy Love is a song that my relative, like, how has that not come up again? Like, how have they said, okay, who else has sung a Puppy Love song? We know it's not Elvis and we know it's not Hound Dog. So it's like, how have they not like done any conversation about that, or do they just truly have no idea, like they can't get anywhere with it? Because it's not like there's no information about Chris out there. Like he confirmed himself that it was Puppy Love.
That's a good point. Like in terms of like the overall meta strategy of the show, if you have somebody like Chris and it's like, okay, we know his relative's a teen idol in the 70s that sang Puppy Love, that means nothing to us. Just put him in the guess off every week, because let him guess and maybe he's wrong. And that's how you get rid of him, because you're never going to figure out who he's related to.
That's how you do it now.
I am once again brave enough to admit that I don't know the song Puppy Love. I do not know that Donny Osmond is in a Vegas residency. And if you told me teen idol in the 70s, I'd be like, was Kirk Cameron in the 70s? Like I'd be like scratching my brain for like Nick at Night shows. So, and I'm probably considerably older than the majority of the people on the contestants on this show. You'd have to give the sibling clue, the famous like sibling duo, to get me to Donny Osmond, because I do know who Donny Osmond is, even though apparently I don't know any of the top 5 ChatGPT generated facts about him. So I think they will get him. I think later on in the game, the sibling clue will come out, and maybe the family is everything is related to him. That could be Nick. I mean, that could be anyone with a family. Jen McCarthy has kids, but like, I think that's gonna get people to Donny Osmond. It just has to come later in like a more obvious clue challenge.
A lot of people were, because we were talking about the clues from last week in the telephone game, and a lot of people were saying that the little sis tags along clue was probably for Donny Osmond,
but not the
kind of
the Vegas.
That, but like, that's maybe it wasn't then. Or were there multiple? I don't know. See, but then what is the little sis tags along clue then? Like, that's what I don't understand.
I mean, I bought the Lil Nas X stretch clue that you guys talked about that last week, but
but like sis, like that part, I'm like, what does that mean? Anyway, again, if we get the like 6 degrees of separation, like that could be something that is helpful for getting Chris. But we see Chris at the end of this episode kind of like outlining, being like, I am on the wrong track. Like I did not know this about Olivia. I definitely thought Carson was Jeff Gordon. Like, I just learned I was wrong about a lot of things tonight. And that could be foreshadowing for his eventual exit being him guessing somebody wrong. I think that's probably the easiest way to get rid of him if you're any of these people in the game at this point.
Okay, well, they are going to go with a plan to try to get Olivia to guess wrong, or at least guess for Carson whether she's right or wrong. So Chris is trying to pump up Olivia and says that, Hugo, I think he's related to Donald Trump, and not Jimmy Carter. It's got to be Trump. And then also pushing Olivia to go for Jeff Gordon, and shows her the clue. And so Olivia is like, okay, yeah, I guess it must be Jeff Gordon. Interesting, Jenny, that Olivia was the only person that mentioned Dale Earnhardt Jr. in confessional a couple of weeks ago.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, I don't understand how that name, and they asked they clearly were trying to figure it out because they asked the junior question to Olivia in her in the challenge. So it's like they clearly had that name tossed around at some point, but they just decided, no, it's not that. I guess it's just Jeff Gordon. Like, I guess that's just it. I don't know why they were just so zeroed in on that.
Love Jeff Gordon.
It has to be the number and the beer thing, right? Because I think Gabriel was the one who was like, I'm from wherever racing is done, and he drives number this for Budweiser. And then they asked her about the number in the challenge. Like,
it was like 24.
That's the only thing. And I would have to, if I'm Olivia, I guess I would rather go for Jimmy Carter, that I think I could verify myself. Although, as I've outed on this podcast, I would not have been able to verify that. But I certainly wouldn't have been able to say, oh, Gabriel is lying to me about the number. And I don't think he was. Like, I think he genuinely believed that related to Jeff Gordon. But I think that's why they're so zeroed in. It's like those other two pieces that they've sort of as a house decided are accurate, which are not. But
and maybe Olivia is like, there are two very plausible names for Hugo, and Hugo seems like he maybe is wanting to work with me. I don't know what Hugo actually said in that conversation where she says, yeah, it's Carrot Top, you should keep me around. But Olivia seemed like someone who didn't have a lot of allies in the house. So maybe she was like, okay, well, I'm not going to take my one shot to get out Hugo and also potentially still be wrong. I'll go with Carson, who I'm also working with. I don't know. I need to talk to her. I need to find out what she was thinking.
Carson had a quiet episode. I feel like for somebody who there was a lot of speculation trying to get her out, I feel like that just maybe nobody's talking to her in the house. Is she just frozen out, Ali?
Isn't it hard to freeze someone out in like such a small group of people? I mean, you guys are the Big Brother.
Nobody likes her. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, weird dynamics too, because I think like people get along and then they don't work together in this house more than like a normal show. Like, especially with your interview of Amara, like they're all in a group chat and whatever. Like, I don't think there's bad blood between any of these celebrity relatives and Carson, but Carson's one to watch now. I think this feels more like wow, I think, than even the Elvis Presley guess, because that felt sort of like very early on. I don't have a lot of information. I've got to kind of go quickly off of this clue. This I feel like will have ramifications on the house next week. Like, they might be second guessing where they're at with some of the other contestants also.
Okay.
I just feel like, at this point you have Jeff Gordon confirmed not. Like, just go start talking about there's got to be a second NASCAR person that you could think of.
Possible.
Are we sure it's not Danica Patrick? Like, it has to be Dale Earnhardt Jr. or someone we don't know. Is that?
I think it makes the beer part, because I think that Dale Earnhardt Jr. drove Budweiser. Did we discuss that?
Yes,
he
has a beer car.
Yeah. So that part specifically makes sense. And then I'm also pretty sure
and
that
there's an 8 on the wall.
Yeah, and I think that's Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s number. So
I was literally today years old, or really like 21 days old when they talked years old when they I didn't know that advertisers like only sponsored one racer, and I didn't know that the numbers really were consistent. Like, this is all very, you could basically, other than that they have cars in NASCAR, I know nothing about NASCAR.
I always just like, I've never watched it, but I always noticed that like the cars were always consistently like one sponsor. The number part I didn't really pay attention to, but
so it's not like MMA trunks where it's like wherever you can get a patch.
I was today years old when I learned about MMA trunks.
Are they just like complete, like covered in a bunch of different sponsors?
I don't know, but it felt right when I said it, didn't it? You know, if you say it with conviction, put me on the lie detector, baby. Get my finger on that.
What's your heart rate right now?
Show us your sweat, Ali.
Oh, I already established I'm sweating. The jacket still had lasting effect.
You and me both.
All right. So we're seeing after Hugo and Olivia talk. All right. They would like to see Chris into the guess off if they could. That would be their preference. Olivia, she is leaning towards. Actually, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. We got to talk about Gabriel going into the getting the clue.
Yeah.
I was going to say you're behind. I thought we already talked about the reveal. To not Jeff Gordon.
Yes. So Gabriel is going to go and he pulls the clue. Okay. Here we go. We've got this. Okay. And so this to me says bold artist who blank Old Town Road.
I put like went or goes Old Town Road. Like I feel like it's obvious, but again, I was already convinced that it was Lil Nas X. But like just Old Town Road is just so, you know what I mean? Like that part is.
And the lyric is, I'm gonna take my horse to the Old Town Road. So he goes to the Old Town Road, and then he rides till he can't no more.
Yeah, the pointing is like goes or went or to, something like that. Like that's just a connecting word. And they reference there's still something in the clue we don't know. What is it that? Because
they didn't know what the finger is.
Is that what it is that they're not sure about? Is just the finger part?
Yes. They never said the font thing either, right? I don't think we heard them say bold.
No,
artist,
they didn't figure out bold. But like I feel like that's so, again, someone who spends a lot of time in the Microsoft suite. Like that's such an obvious, like it's the bold,
put that on the
italic and underline, like, and it's the bold is selected. Like that felt like one of the most obvious parts of the clue. But
bold artist who
went to the old. I took my horse to the Old Town Road. What is? Yeah. You have a lot of problems with this clue, Rob.
I can't figure out that finger.
I'm just gonna take my horse to the Old Town Road. So he's a bold artist who went to the Old Town. I sang it beautifully. It was exact. It was.
Yes, you are filling in the words, Ali, but that is not that. You cannot tell me that finger emoji is to the.
He went to. Where did you go? That way. Where did he go?
Goes like. Goes.
Old artist who went to the Old Town Road.
Boy, that finger's doing a lot of work.
All
right.
What
else? Okay, how are you going to, like, what do you have a better suggestion of a connecting symbol to take the bold artist who
Old sang? Town Road? It would have to be like music notes or something, or
which
like,
I think, like maybe
recorded,
revealing. Or, I don't know.
No, it's perfect. 10 out of 10 clue. We could have yada this whole thing. It's 100% like.
No, we need Rob to be.
Yeah, that the really finger makes no sense. If you could get rid of it, you get Old Town Road, bold artist. You know that would have been fine.
But they need to be sentences, and this is why I got so like frustrated with Jane being wrong, just like stringing random phrases together to guess Elvis Presley, because like all of the clues, like. They'll do like an ampersand, like they literally try to connect it in a way that it reads at least as a phrase, and they're not just like random words strung together. So that's why it's like the finger part, I just don't. I think if you're thinking about things as a sentence, like it's just a connecting word, like it's just to or went or goes.
I'm going to take my horse to the Old Man Road. Like,
what about two? What about
then put the number 2?
Yeah, why not? Like,
but then what? Who to Old Town Road? You'd be out here like.
Now you're gonna get super literal about the number 2. The 2's better than the finger, baby.
No, I agree, Ali. No, I agree.
And he did a number 2 at a concert, Ali.
Rob,
it works on a number of levels.
Rob, if that finger had 2 fingers and was like this instead, you'd be outraged. You'd be like. Who to Old Town Road? You're asking for both.
Is it Bono?
Are you asking for the finger and then the number 2? went
goes to Old Town Road.
Rob, some of these people are just, operating at a different level than you are. And I'm sorry, but they're
a terrible way to find
out. But I do
out.
want to say kudos, and I know Jenny touched on this before, but like I do think it was great strategy for Gabriel to say my clue is going to be invaluable tonight when Olivia guesses wrong or could be guessed wrong. So let me at least get some staying information. I know JR is safe and pull that clue. The only downside is he has left his clue as the only option, right? If he takes Olivia, at least somebody else could pick JR. But I think it was a great move. Again, he's the smartest man in the world.
And Nobel Prize. To me, that really telegraphed that like Olivia was going to be the guesser as well, because it's like if he wasn't like pretty sure that they were going to put in Chris, then there was no situation where Olivia is going home. That would be the clue you should take. So that to me, like Gabriel had his finger on the pulse. He knew who was going to go into who was going to be the guesser. He had the numbers to make sure it was Olivia. And so he wasn't going to waste his clue when she could guess wrong. But it was very smart. And, I think that like JR for him is someone that he's working with and isn't maybe as afraid of him, JR going after him. But it's like, why not give me some information on him in case I have to strike first, like in case we're in a situation where we're really getting down to it. I'd rather know a little bit about him than have him, potentially find out something about me. So I love this from him.
Okay.
What do you think of a clue for Lil Nas X? Should they just have had a very tiny photo of Nas the rapper and then Twitter's new logo? X? Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, if only they knew at that time when this was
this
filmed.
Isn't happening live in real time?
It is live. It was live feeds we were watching.
You're in there right now.
Yeah. I misunderstood.
I would love claim to fame live feeds. That would be so
Yeah.
Probably would be pretty boring, to be honest, but I'd probably still watch it.
All right. So we're gonna see Olivia then talking with Hugo, and so actually they're gonna be trying to figure out, okay, this is Lil Nas X. Gabriel's sharing the clue with Chris. Chris feels like it's probable, but they're gonna keep this between them, Gabriel and Chris.
You gotta figure out the finger.
Yes. Okay, they're gonna work that through. Yeah, they work that out. Okay. All right. So Hugo and Olivia are talking, and this is when that Olivia, she thinks it's Jimmy Carter, and so Ali, you felt like that this was the lie that saved Hugo.
You just want me to be like Hugo picked himself up by his bootstraps and saved his own hide here. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe Chris made her feel more confident in the Carson decision or more uncertain about Hugo. I'm very reticent to say that Hugo did anything.
But he played this well, wouldn't you say?
I mean, he didn't reciprocate information, which would have left me feeling a little bit confused. Like when I believed that Olivia was outing herself to Hugo, I was like, oh, she doesn't really get anything in return here. Maybe she should get rid of him.
But I have such great admiration for you as in all things, but especially in mafia. And I feel like that, Chris kind of got accused, or Hugo kind of got accused of being in the mafia, and was able to play it off where like Olivia went down another line of questioning.
Yeah, Hugo has an unbelievable strategy of just being so shifty to everyone, such that being shifty is not strange and people can still trust him and like work with him because that's just who he is. Like he's come in confusing and so he stays confusing. And like I said, Hugo could be in the room with me right now and could gaslight me into thinking he wasn't actually here.
Well, we literally had the Jonases come in and ask before the challenge, ask the group who thinks that they're a good liar. And Hugo immediately raises his hand. And then everyone, and Monet's like, this guy lies 24/7. And then they're all still just like working with him and protecting him. They're like, we don't know what's going on with this guy at any given moment. Like he's a huge liar. We don't know what's true, but also we are not going to take a shot at him because we're so confused by him.
So Jenny, also Olivia almost had like going back to Gabriel. Boy, Gabriel's come such a long way. Remember the Neil deGrasse Tyson of it all? And we almost had a little bit of that with Olivia, where that she almost, instead of guessing Jeff Gordon, she wanted to guess Jeff Goldblum. How hilarious would it have been to see her lose on Jeff Goldblum as the guess?
I mean, that to me indicates that Olivia would know who JB Smoove is, and I can't explain why I think that. But if Jeff Goldblum is so top of mind, I feel like you could make that leap.
All the Jeff
Can
G's.
you imagine the world where Carson is saved by an incorrect guess twice? So Olivia accidentally says Jeff Goldblum. Oh, it's not Jeff Goldblum. Sorry, Olivia. Time for you to go. Then they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe
she said the wrong name.
She said Jeff Goldblum." And then the next week they do Jeff Gordon.
It's Jeff Gordon. It's like one of those clips when everybody keeps getting the puzzle wrong on Wheel of Fortune. Like, no, sorry. No.
The producer would be like, "Oh, there's new clues on the wall. It's 1,000 gourds, like pumpkins." Like, they need people to guess that. Like, whatever they can do to secure the guess for that, they're doing.
That would just, I mean, we would never get that, but it's just so funny to think about.
Okay. Jenny, are we able to figure out who voted for whom here? So we get Monet voted for Olivia.
Yeah.
Carson voted for Chris. We know Olivia is going into the guess off. So we should assume Chris and Gabriel also were Olivia votes, right?
Well, Gabriel doesn't vote, so I think so. Monet. So I believe that Monet. Everyone else, I think, was.
We
just
saw Monet's vote for Olivia.
Yeah. So Monet voted for Olivia. Hugo probably voted for Olivia. And I guess at this point, maybe Hugo just knows. Yeah, and JR, I think, JR is working with Gabriel, and if this is what Gabriel wants, like, I think that Gabriel kind of controls JR's vote at this point. And Carson is the one vote for Chris because she thinks that he's less likely to guess her. Which we don't know for sure what Chris would have done if he had been selected as the. Because he doesn't even say, we go into like the guess off and he's like, I got a few options in my pocket here. Like, we don't know who he would have gone for.
What do you think he would have done, Ali?
I think he would have picked Carson. I think people just felt more comfortable with Carson because he wasn't the one who figured out the nuts thing, right? So I don't even think like he felt that with his I felt that with his own eyes. That's not the expression. It's been a long time discussing claim to fame. You guys are heroes.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to get, Olivia's the guesser. She's going to call up Carson. And like, this was very dramatic, Jenny. It was like, I love you. You've been my day one. She's like, I know. She's like, if anybody has to end my game, I know it's you. And then she knows that Olivia's got nothing.
This was killing me to watch because I know at this point when she calls up Carson that it's game over for Olivia because there's not been a single name besides Jeff Gordon, and I knew it wasn't going to be Jeff Gordon. And so to watch Carson be like, girl, you're my day one as well, like if anyone's going to take me out, I'm so glad it's you. It's like she is just playing this girl to the very end. Like
I think that Olivia probably knows who JB Smoove is, but I don't think Olivia watches a lot of reality TV because Carson's pulling the like classic Survivor tale of like someone not scrambling at camp and being like, Jeff, it's just when it's your time, and you can't really do anything about it. And then they play an idol. Like, I don't think Olivia should have taken anything from this, but as somebody who plays a lot of Mafia and has misdirected a lot of people to a lot of triumphant, amazing victories, I take no pleasure in lying directly to people's faces. Like, Carson enjoyed this a little bit too much in an unnecessary way. Like, she didn't need to add, I like it from a television perspective, but if I'm Olivia, I'm a little perturbed by the choice to continue to make me look stupid up until the last minute.
I get that for sure. Like, I mean, it was good. It was, and like it. Without the knowledge that she knows that Olivia is going to be wrong, like it feels like such a tender moment. I'm like, I love when people become close on reality TV and they grow these real friendships. And then, but like watching it through the lens of like Carson is thrilled right now because she knows that she's good. it's rough. It's rough to watch, but
Is the, sorry,
I'm
is
sure
the
they're probably fine.
Is the Dale Earnhardt Jr. supposed to be Carson's dad or uncle or?
I think uncle.
Okay,
right?
I was gonna say a little
Or
on the
is it-
nose to name your daughter Carson when you're a race
car
car driver.
driver.
I would be
Yeah.
better
Carson.
It's tough.
if she was the son, but
I think is it with a K?
it's Karsyn.
Like Cars for Kids.
Oh my god. Is
Good
that a
night.
thing in the
Thank you,
States?
everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was
KARSYNN.
literally the worst commercial in it haunts me, Rob.
Wow, Jenny hates charity.
I
Drag
do.
them.
It's
Jenny hates
just this
charity.
one. I hate that song. Do you have the same commercial that I have? 877 cars for kids.
I'm not giving them free promo. You hate charity.
So I only stream like one sports channel up here. I don't have cable, and I swear to God, they play this commercial like 1,500 times a day. So it lives rent free in my head. So I'm sorry, but Cars for Kids is on my shit list.
Sorry.
Drag them. Drag them.
Okay.
Anyway, I thought it was a Canadian thing, so today I learned.
Today, yeah, we're all in the Cars for Kids verse. Yeah,
you know, it like Ali said, it's an educational show, educational podcast. We're here all learning.
Sure thing. Ali, how do you feel about the Jonas Bros as hosts of the show? We haven't talked about them at all tonight.
Frankie Jonas, national treasure. Kevin Jonas, great host. I love the gag of him, not gag. I love the like realism of him leaving the show mid-challenge. Frankie is incredible. Bonus Jonas really fits him. It is a tremendous bonus. I love that they're like the perfect little team to have somebody like mildly famous, but still mostly known for being someone else's claim to fame.
Yeah.
I hope they never change.
Franklin's been really great this season. All right, let's talk about next week, Jenny. Who's the next person to go out? I feel like that we've gotten in the beginning of the season, there was a lot of foreshadowing. There was no foreshadowing going into this episode. And then really we kind of like got Gabriel talking about how he's feeling pretty good at the end of the episode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're Gabriel, you are in the best position because you have the most information and the least information about you out. So you have to be feeling good if you're Gabriel. But I think that while I do think that this was bad for Carson in that like the one NASCAR person they were zeroed in on, they just got, confirmed it is not that person. So they could easily just decide to try to go for another NASCAR person. I think I'm worried for JR now because JR to me is the layup now because like I don't think that people are going to want, like, I think that people want to work with JR. But I think that his clue is just so clear at this point. The other person I think is in trouble is Hugo. Like Monet and Chris and Gabriel all now know it's Jimmy Carter. It just comes down to who wins the challenge. And like what are they feeling is the best move for them, because that's the thing is like JR could be saved another week just by virtue of them feeling less threatened by him and feeling like they're going to take out Hugo. But I think that like I said earlier in the podcast, I think the three in the best position at this point are Monet, Gabriel, and Chris, and the three that I'm most worried going out the next three eliminations are JR, Hugo, and Carson.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
I also think
they would take
not...
out first, though. Sorry.
You want to answer that?
Well, no, I was going to say I also don't think those three are particularly great at winning the challenges. So I also think their likelihood of safety is low. I agree with everything Jenny said on this and all things. But because I think like even though they're certain about the Jimmy Carter clue, the Hugo of it all, and the fact that there were two names, and even if they're certain about Carson's clue, like seeing somebody burn up in flames who was confident, the whole house was confident on, there is nobody else that JR's clue, depending on how far and wide that clue goes, or if Chris or Gabriel happen to be in the bottom, like there is just no doubt I would pick JR and be certain about it.
Going back to last season, it seems like that the format to get to the end was, a duo with sort of like a hapless person who was sort of like being like dragged along a little bit. And maybe it just worked out that way with Pepper. I don't know who Gabriel's final two is. Is it Monet? Is it Chris? Like, I feel like that Gabriel kind of has his pick of who he wants to go towards the end with. I don't know which way he wants to go.
I mean, he definitely knows that is his strategy right now, in that like everyone thinks that it's him and them to the end. That's great. Like he knows that that's what's getting him places. I think that if he can't figure out Monet's clue, it's not wise for him to go to the final two with Monet. So I think that and that's why I don't love that Gabriel shared the clue with Chris, because if he feels not threatened by JR and he's like, oh my God, JR, it's Lil Nas X, like that's his person he should be going to the final twos with, because then he knows he can for sure take him out. That's what I would think. But I don't know. I don't know what he wants.
Okay. All right. Anything else claim to fame tonight? Well, this was a fun episode. Ali, this was wonderful to have you here with us. What else is going on in your world, Ali?
Yeah, huge back announcement. Back after a long hiatus. There will be the return of New Girl Old Guy this week after about 6 weeks off. But probably bigger news for our undoubtedly bigger audience. The Challenge is back, as you previewed. The Challenge, CBS season 2, back in a big way. Brian and I will be back in a big way starting August 10th. There's going to be 2 nights a week for the first 3 weeks.
We just did that with Tough as Nails.
Off to the races. I mean, it's a lot for anyone. And we'll be previewing that with you coming up, Rob. So
yeah, look for that later on this week. I will get the chance to be blessed to talk about the challenge once again with Ali and Brian. So we will do our Challenge USA season 2 preview later on this week. Make sure you subscribe to our Challenge RHAP up feed at robhasawebsite.com/challenge feed or robhasawebsite.com/challenge iTunes for Ali Lasher. Okay. All right.
This was great. This was a real dream come true. Truly.
I'm
so
happy, Ali. This is a dream for me. So I'm so glad that you ended up getting caught up on season 1 and are watching, because this is
Jenny,
awesome.
What's coming up for you?
Rob, you and I are still hit or
Stars
quitting.
on Mars.
We are still watching Stars on Mars.
Can you believe that, Ali?
Oh, I believe it.
It's a show.
I believe it.
It is a real show. And so, yeah, we are continuing coverage for that. So check that out. And other than that, find me on social media at Jenny Autumn, and Big Brother 25 cast announced today. It's real. It's happening. So excited for that. And that's pretty much it for me.
Speaking of Nepo babies.
Yeah, Nepo babies for sure.
I tweeted about this earlier, and that I think that Big Brother should have done a little claim to fame, cheeky style twist, and just had everyone on the cast related to someone from Survivor or reality television, and there could have been like a little side quest of trying to figure out who they're related to. I thought it was a fun little cheeky idea.
I love it. I love it.
Put me on production, okay?
Okay. All right. And of course, we have our first reactions to the Big Brother 25 cast that is up currently on robhasawebsite.com, not to mention our aforementioned Tough as Nails season 5 finale coverage as well, and everything else we're doing over at robhasawebsite.com. Make sure you subscribe to all of our podcast feed at robhasawebsite.com/subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.